benchmarking of best practices. To her credit, she has guided 12 MPhil scholars. She has published nearly 15 articles in reputed journals. A person more interested in training the students to attain different skills like histrionics, oratory, and entrepreneur skills. And she seems to be a very good personality who gives more importance to the profession, who is true blue to the profession, and she's always a person to improve her knowledge. And with these words, I would like to invite Dr. S.Sankari. And ma'am, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you, Selvalakshmi, for the introduction. My humble pranams to our Revyadambas, respected principal.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma, shall I start?
Yes, ma'am. You can proceed.
Respected principal, beloved controller of examinations, coordinators of the webinar series, and my dear friends. A very good afternoon
yes,
to
ma'am,
all.
you can.
Quality has become a defining element of education in the 21st century. Providing quality education to large numbers at affordable cost is a primary concern of developing countries. As quality becomes the defining element of education, quality and excellence should be the vision of every higher education institution. Acquisition of quality and excellence is a great challenge faced by all higher education institutions. The benchmarking, the systematic means of measuring and comparing the work processes of an organization with those of others is widely used for quality measurement and improvement. In this context, institutional benchmarking of best practices is a very much important topic to be dealt with. Could you see the slide? Is it visible?
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, it's visible, ma'am. Yes.
Shall I continue?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Today,
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
going
Yes,
to
ma'am.
share. Today, I'm going to share
Let's
some of the concepts on
proceed.
institutional benchmarking of best practices. This is the outline of my presentation. What is benchmarking? That is definition and meaning of benchmarking. The various types of benchmarking, best practices, benchmarking, and stages in the application of best practices. Why benchmarking? That is, what is the need for benchmarking? Few examples on, that is, few examples of best practices, few cases pertaining to teaching and learning methods. So, we are going to start with an early benchmarking history, a small story. Lowell, a city in America, and is named after Francis Lowell, the hero of our story. It is considered as the cradle of American Industrial Revolution, as it was the first large-scale factory town in the United States. How it happened? In the 1800s, British textile mills were absolutely the best in the world. In contrast, American mills were still in their infancy, that is at the beginning stage. Francis Lowell, an American industrialist, set out to change the situation by upgrading business technology in the United States. He traveled to England, where he studied the manufacturing techniques and industrial design of the best British mill factories. In 1815, Francis Lowell built a factory that employed much of the technology in the British plants. In 1820, the Textile Mill Center became known as Lowell, Massachusetts. By 1840, that is just two decades later, Lowell had grown to become the second largest city in America and the largest manufacturing complex in the country. This dynamic growth was largely due to one man's vision and his ability to creatively adapt practices observed in the world's best mills. Okay, now what is benchmarking? Benchmarking is the process of identifying, understanding, and adapting outstanding practices and processes from organizations anywhere in the world in order to help one's own organization to improve its performance. In the history, which we have seen just now, Lowell succeeded in his venture because he identified, understood, and adapted the outstanding British technology with his own modification. Prince Otto von Bismarck, the first Chancellor of Germany, when told that a wise man learns from experience, he replied, "No, a fool learns from experience. A wise man learns from the experience of others." So, benchmarking means learning from others. Benchmarking is also defined as a standard or reference by which others can be measured or judged. In this, what do I mean by others? It may be an organization or institution or product or practice. Benchmarking is a method of teaching an institution how to improve. Benchmarking, it is a diagnostic instrument and self-improvement tool. Next, let us pass on to best practices benchmarking. Benchmarking means finding out who is the best in an area, studying how they work and adapt the best practices that are suitable to one's own organization. Benchmarking enables an organization to learn best practices or at least better practices for improving its operation. Next, let us move on to types of benchmarking. Broadly, benchmarking is divided into two types, namely internal benchmarking and external benchmarking. These two are further divided into 9 types actually, but for the sake of convenience, I have given 4. So, under types of benchmarking, first let us see the broad classification, internal and external benchmarking. What is internal benchmarking? Comparison of practices and performances within an organization.
Miss, excuse
So,
me, Miss.
yes,
Miss, your slide. Miss, you have to
you
give.
couldn't see?
Miss, excuse me, Miss. Give the next slide, Miss.
I have put, it is actually types of benchmarking. Could you see?
Yes, ma'am. Seen, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Miss.
You could see, no?
No,
Yes,
yeah.
Types
ma'am.
of
Yes, ma'am.
benchmarking?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So, under types of benchmarking,
Okay, Miss.
we have two, that is, it is broadly classified into two, namely internal benchmarking and external benchmarking. Coming to internal benchmarking, comparison of practices and performances within an organization. That is, if you consider universities and colleges between departments of a university or college. For example, I may compare chemistry department with physics department or English department with economics department, like that. External benchmarking, comparison of institutional performance with other best organizations. For example, if we want to compare our college, then we have to choose some best colleges. Maybe St. Joseph's College, Trichy, or St. Xavier's College, Calcutta, or like that. Any best college you can choose for comparison. Similarly, you can compare universities with universities. Then, next classification is, that is actually I have given 4 other classifications. Strategic benchmarking. So what do I mean by strategic benchmarking? So to improve performance by examining long-term strategies. So the ultimate goal is to improve performance. So to improve performance by examining long-term strategies. So what we have to do, identify the winning strategies. We have to identify the winning strategies that have enabled the high performing institutions to be successful. So you identify the winning strategies and you modify the strategies according to the structure of your institution and then adapt. That is strategic benchmarking. The next one is performance benchmarking. So to compare the performance with other institutions. So here in this benchmarking, we are comparing the performance of our institution with other institutions. So higher education institutes focus on outcomes with reference to target institutions. So we focus on outcomes. What is the outcome? Based on the performance. If the outcome is good, then we can follow the performance. Next one is process benchmarking. To observe and investigate educational processes to identify the best practices. Focuses on improving specific processes. So it is process benchmarking. Next one is the best practices benchmarking. So studying the best practices in other institutions and emulating them. So best practices benchmarking is nothing but studying the best practices in other institutions and emulating them. The term best practices needs a little explanation. Best practices are quality enhancing academic or administrative or infrastructural strategies adapted by highly accredited institutions of higher learning in the present instance. So next, why benchmarking? Why benchmarking? Internally, how good do we want to be? How good we are? How good do we want to be and how good we are? That is to know what is best in our own institution so that other universities or colleges can emulate them. So that is first. Second one, externally. How well are we doing compared to others? How well are we doing compared to others? Who is doing it the best way? How well are we doing compared to others? Who is doing it the best way? That is to find out where an institution stands with reference to the best institutions in that category so that it can improve its performance and grading. Ultimately, how do they do it? How can we adapt when they do to our, how can we adapt what they do to our institution? How can we be better than the best? So ultimately, how do they do it? அவங்க எப்படி பண்றாங்க? How can we adapt what they do to our institution? How can we adapt what they do? How can we adapt to our own institution? Then, how can we be better than the best? So, it is for improving quality in terms of teaching, learning, research, infrastructure, student progression, so that students and hence the society benefits from benchmarking. Best practices benchmarking. Best practices, just now we have seen the practices which add commendable value to an institution and its various stakeholders are considered as reliable benchmarks or standards of quality. Institutional excellence in higher education is an aggregate of best practices followed in different areas of institutional performance. The National Assessment and Accreditation Council is advocating the best practices benchmarking approach for quality enhancement in higher education. The best practices as benchmarks help institutions to find their anchor for self-improvement. So next, let us pass on to stages in the application of best practices, which we can say as 4I and D mode. It is called as 4I and D mode. So first one is identification of best practice. You have to identify the best practice. Second one, implementation of best practice. Third one, institutionalization of the best practice. Internalization of best practice is the next one. The last one is dissemination of best practices. So these are the different stages in the application of best practices. So first one, Identification. So first you have to identify the best practice. So identification is not a simple process. The identification of best practices depends on many variables such as institutional goals, pedagogic requirements, nature of learners, competencies of staff, infrastructure facilities, and governance requirements. Best practices need to be identified considering all these things. Next one is implementation of best practices. The implementation approach focuses more on performance. The total quality management system is used to implement best practices. TQM is used to implement best practices. Next one is institutionalization of best practices. Best practices should be institutionalized and internalized for sustainability. So if you want to sustain the best practice, definitely it need to be institutionalized and internalized. So what is institutionalization? Is a process of making the best practices an integral part of the institution. So the best practices should be made an integral part of the institution. Next one is internalization of best practices. Aristotle rightly observed that we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Internalization of best practices means making excellence an integral part of one's habit and nature. Dissemination of best practices. So all the 4 steps are okay, but why dissemination of best practices? So dissemination of best practices is also very much important. So we must learn and benefit from each other's experience. That is, even within an institution, at times there are communication gaps which affect the expected outcome of the practice. The internal quality assurance cell, it records and disseminates the best practices followed by the institution. So now let us see one of the best practices of Parvati Bai Chagle College of Arts and Science, Goa. So when I was attending the FDP course, one of the resource persons of that college shared her experience with us, and let me share the same to you. On the teaching learning methods, problem-based learning method has been put forward by the college as a best practice method. The resource person explained it by giving an example from her own specialization. So I could not give that particular example. So generally, let me say the problem-based learning. What is that problem-based learning? Problem-based learning is a student-centric approach in which students learn about a subject by working in groups to solve an open-ended or real-time problem. This problem is what drives the motivation and learning among the students. So in the traditional learning, we teach whatever is in the syllabus Then we give problems and the students work out the problems. Now it is different. The problem-based learning is different. That is, the student is given the problem. The students are assigned problem. Then the student should identify what they know and what they need to know. Then they have to learn and apply to solve the problem. So this is problem-based learning. So this problem-based learning leads to higher order thinking among the students. Higher order thinking among the students. It promotes leadership skills and it helps them to think rationally. These are the advantages of higher order, problem-based learning. Before concluding, let me share the success story of the well-known Xerox company, the leaders of photocopiers. A Xerox Corporation in the United States of America originated the concept of benchmarking. Xerox history in brief. Xerox was founded in the year 1906 in United States of America by a person named Eloy Xerox. In 1998, Xerox profits were growing at 20% a year and its stock price was soaring. Then things went wrong for Xerox when US firms like IBM and Kodak and Japanese firms like Canon and Minolta entered. They were selling the products at the Xerox manufacturing cost. So the cost of the product was less. So people started buying Canon, IBM, and other products, but not Xerox. So in the middle of 2001, stock price plucked for Xerox companies. There is a loss for the company. So what did they do? They implemented benchmarking. Immediately, the profit increased by 23%. Mistakes are painful when they happen. Yes, Xerox company experienced that. But years later, collection of mistakes is called experiences, which leads to success. Conclusion: benchmarking is a continuous process and activity. For every time the bar is raised, there are better models for emulation. So this time we may be having one as the best practice. Later, it may not be considered as best practice. So as time goes, we have to change. Change is the only thing which remains unchanged. So let us all change ourselves for the betterment of ourselves and for our institution. Thank you.
Dear participants, if you have anything, any doubts, you can very well get it clarified. The session is open now. Participants? Dear participants, if you have any doubts, you can very well get it clarified. Yeah, I think Madam Mary.
Is it a credit for me? Everything is clear?
Madam, good afternoon. I'm Mary Reggie from Bangalore.
Yeah.
I have a question. When
Yes.
we say this benchmarking in terms of academics, can we, let's say in case of a college, how do we decide that which college is to be benchmarked with relation to our performance? How do we decide on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, we go for the grading actually. So the institutions which are graded, top graded institutions, that is institutions with A double plus and A plus, should be taken as a reference for benchmarking. Because NAC, after a lot of putting a lot of key indicators and after a lot of workout, they give the grade, is it not? So the best institutes for comparison is institutes with A double plus and A plus grade. And another thing in this, I would like to say, we should not compare our universities with IIT. It's not possible because they have a different framework. So comparison should be proper. Okay, a college should be compared with a college, an autonomous institution with autonomous, affiliated institution with affiliated institution, university with university. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Dear participants, if you have any doubts, you can very well get it clarified. Shall we move on to the next session then? Okay, we'll just take it in the right sense that there's no more questions. Okay. Okay, one more chance for the participants. Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, then shall we conclude?
Yeah, yes.
Yes. Okay. Just a thank you note, ma'am. It was really very much interesting. And your presentation had a it was very much organized in a very good manner, that you had to start with what and why benchmarking and different types of benchmarking. And you had elaborated with the 4I and D mode. And you had given us the benchmarking history in a very, in a very much, it could be understood by anyone. It was very much clear, and it was very much, it was acceptable by every one of us. And you have concluded with Aristotle's word, and it was very much impressive. And I was remembered by the words of Oscar Wilde when you had to give the last slide, where you had to give about mistakes. And Oscar Wilde has given a statement: mistake is a name given by mistake is a name. Experience is a name given by everyone for their mistakes. So I was reminded of that particular quote, ma'am. So it was very much interesting, and we were very. I think there's a lot of take-home messages now. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Yes, I think participants are ready to have the next session now. And we are going to have the topic challenges in building collaborations in research and innovations. And we have a very active person now who's very active in research, a person with clear vision and who wish to learn more. And that is none other than a little, little daughter of Sarada family. And she is Dr. R. Gomati. And to her credit, she holds a project funded by TNSCST and has published articles in journals and always put her shoulders to get success in all her endeavors. A right person to talk on the topic, challenges in building collaborations in research and innovations. Over to Dr. R. Gomati. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am, for your nice words of introduction.
Yes.
It is such a hard thing on earth, having to speak after Shankari ma'am, the wisest presentation, which had the utmost words of wisdom. And she being my teacher, I have walked and I'm still walking, holding her fingers. And here I am trying to make justice on the topic, challenges in building collaboration in research and innovation. Ma'am, I think, may I share my slides?
Yes, definitely, ma. I think Dr. Linga can help you.
May I
ma'am,
know if
can
my
I share?
slide is visible, ma'am?
Ye-
May I
It
know
is
if my
visible.
yes, visible, Gomati.
thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
So,
Visible, ma'am.
yes, ma'am. So, with the pranams of our revered ambas, respected principal, respected controller of examination, erudite faculty members of our college, and members across India, fellow colleagues and friends, good afternoon, one and all. So, critically, important scientific issues or innovation technologies are often solved by working together. Yes. And managing of different fields is always expected and proved towards achieving incredible goals. So let us talk very precise on research collaboration before traveling to its challenges. Now, having said that, collaborative research or research collaborations is nothing but the research which involve coordination between the researchers, institutions, organizations, and the communities, which leads or in favor or favors the distinct expertise towards a project in order to master the unexpected through expected means. So now, having said that, the collaborative research are classified as voluntary, which happens out of an individual's own consent, or consorted, where there is association of two or more individuals or companies, organizations, governments, where they are all combined with the objective of participating in a common activity or pooling their resources together for achieving a common goal. The next is federation, which involves a group of states which are combined for one common goal. And the fourth one is affiliation, which is nothing but a connection with a party or with larger organizations. And the last part of classification is merging, that is, you become a part of something or you join together for some big cause. So, with this kind of collaborative research happens at 5 levels. Level 1, which is within disciplinary, intradisciplinary, which means a team of researchers within the same department participate for one common goal. The next is interdisciplinary, where a team of researchers of different departments participate together. And the third thing is multidisciplinary, which involves a team of researchers of different background. The next is transdisciplinary, which involves participation of people from outside academia into research progress. So now all these happen for one single reason, where everyone aspire for one common demand. So having said that, now comes the next question. Why do we actually need this collaborative research? So the very clear one single answer is to establish partnership. So we need partnership for exchanging ideas across disciplines, to learn new skills, to have access for funding, to obtain higher quality of results, with higher precision and higher accuracy, and to have a radical, unimaginable, a complete, a holistic benefit on the research problem, and for personal factors such as for fun and pleasure. Now, besides these, collaborative research also builds honor and respect of an individual's participation or among individuals in the group and organizational style. It also increases ethical conduct, including honesty, integrity, justice, transparency, and confidentiality. So, in addition to all these, we need collaborative research to save time and money. And it is always to be remembered that several breakthrough results of problems have resulted out of collaborative research. Collaborative researches also eases the understanding of cause and effect, and it creates a professional environment around us. So, bestowed with huge opportunities, no way less, it also fosters increased difficulties and challenges. So now what you're seeing in the slide is nothing but a few common challenges that arises while building collaborations. So some among them are, number one, miscommunication. So this miscommunication is well explained through the pictures that you can see on the slide. It says, my words came out fine, but they were processed incorrectly by your brain. And the next picture at the bottom, it depicts that one person see the image as 6, while the other see it as 9. So this miscommunication in research, this affects or this becomes a challenge in research collaboration. The next one is discontent with a slow collaborator. I don't mean that it is harmful or it is not to work with people who are slow. Now, this point actually means that getting into pace with people who work at their own speed and at their own rate. It is understanding their essence and trying to keep pace with the patients in order to achieve the common goal. The next point is unwillingness of sharing or working together after crossing midway. It is all fine during inception of a common interest. People come together, they agree to work together, experimental procedures laid all clear, objectives are in order, partnership is determined, and the research is progressing, blooming, flourishing, reaching glory, and all of a sudden something happens. Things turn down, and the collaborator starts to ripple from the team or from the project after crossing halfway through. Such things happen, which is also one of the challenges in collaboration. The next thing is, there is one common stereotyped statement that one can see in a research article after this acknowledgement section. You can find these statements such as no conflict of statement proposed by the authors, or none proposed, or something like no conflict of ideas. Well, I feel that there is something that really needs to be understood, that is having conflict of interest or ideas is all fine. It is not a mandatory thing that the research collaboration should not have any conflict or should have no conflict. It only demands how things are pooled and presented together and how the conflicts are being lubricated. And the next challenge is as to what and when to publish. We could see such kind of people around us, like a few of the people in the team are in favor of publishing every single finding now and then, while others, they prefer a large publication with high impact factors, with more research visibility after compilation of whole data. So this is also one of the challenges that we normally find during collaboration. And then now the last point, if this point arises while working or collaborating with peoples of different nations. Now, it is sometimes difficult to reach people instantly, owing to their multiple time zone and differences in languages when we are working with people from different nations. Despite the fact that English, the lingua franca, is communication, what we say in one end and what is perceived at the other end may not be always equal. So, now all these points that I have listed so far or we had seen as the challenges during building collaboration, or all these, however, on a lighter end. All these are on a lighter end. Now, here comes the concentrated challenges. So to start with, the individual challenge comes first. With regard to our Indian system of academics, our academic framework in terms of recognitions, reward, and promotions are considered only at individual level rather than collaborative work. Say, for example, a promotion or tenure work is given with huge credits only in case of single authored publications rather than collaborative works. Similarly, intellectual property rights is dealt with issues when it comes to participation between an individual and institution, say like 40-60 percentage, or individual and institution and industry, say like 30-40 percentage, or whatever the policy is being framed or made. And it is worth mentioning that we still lack policy initiatives and or precise policy in case of outcome of the research and research collaboration as a whole is concerned. Fine. Now, there is also one problem in our country where there is a separation of education and research is concerned. Say, for instance, let's take a Chinese publication published in some, say, for example, American Chemical Society. Now, one could see collaboration through the affiliation that are cited in that publication, which may comprise of a polytechnic institution with a medical institution and an industry, all working together on one common interest, which is actually not frequent to find such a kind of collaboration in our nation. Well, the next comes institutional challenges. So these are lined up with differences in different approaches. See, there can be discrepancies in action and thoughts in terms of objectives, hypothesis, cultural differences, and issue with technologies. Now, let me explain them through a few situations. On a lighter note, and let me have a less technical term in explaining these situations. Say, for example, I am doing a research on some chemical compound which, when fortified or added in milk drink and consumed, is found to boost immunity. Now, let me say I have the right results at the basic, and now my fortified milk is boosting immunity. So now, it is time that I require an international collaboration to validate on a higher and large level. Now, we cannot ask for collaboration from Ghana or South Korea to work on this project. Let me explain why. Because despite my research favors wellness of humanity in common, most people of Ghana or South Korea are lactose intolerant. The consumption of milk itself is less in those nations. So they may not be much interested to work on this goal, despite this goal have a greater credibility. So one important challenge in building a strong research collaboration is finding the right pitch or hitting the right matter. Similarly, say for example, I'm working on a drug against diabetics. Now, the drug that is designed for Indians who are all rice consumers. And so this drug will have a respective mechanism of action which can serve anti-diabetic, which can cure diabetics, may not be equal with the people of Georgia, where the incidence of diabetics in Georgians is because of obesity, which leads to diabetics. So they demand drug which have a different mechanism of action at a different physiological level. So in short, the objective and the hypothesis of this research problem, in case of this anti-diabetic drug, can be an anti-diabetic drug, but then the cultural differences exist and does not demand an equal and successful research collaboration. Now let me explain The third case. See, every one of us aspires collaboration with people who are greater than us or carry more plus than us, or in other words, we reach out to people always higher than us. So vice versa. This would also happen, or this would also be the same way, that even if we are asked for collaboration, that is we are expected to be on a higher end to offer hands for research collaboration. Now you may question me, why is this philosophy, or forgive me, a sort of philosophy is around in this moment? This is regarding issue with the technology. Issue with the technology. Let's say, for example, I had to grow a bacteria anaerobically. Anaerobically, say, for example, without oxygen, or in other words, lack of oxygen. So I have posted a picture of a bell jar experiment for your reference. Now, this we have studied in a lower class, that a simple bell jar experiment where a candle light glows until it consumes all oxygen, right? And then it goes off when the oxygen is lost. So I can literally grow bacteria using this experiment, and can also come up with results, with successful results, where I can grow bacteria in the absence of oxygen. So this is all fine. However, now proceeding on a higher validation, I asked for collaboration in Canada, or to work on the same, or on the next level. They may not be happy with my results, or with my conditions optimized, or with the results that have been obtained, because they have a unique equipment called carbon dioxide incubator, which is specially designed to grow cultures in the lack of oxygen or devoid of oxygen. So now, pooling all these things together, so these are the cases where it is hard to gain, one, collaborative trust, or two, or win the collaborators' trust with the results that we have optimized, that we have obtained, and to take it further to the next step. So I would also like to hit on something like our own research papers, when published, will carry details of instruments that we had used during experiments. Say, for example, carrying details of the equipment's make, made, and model. Now, all these are demanded by the journals. If this detail is enough to define who we really are, what is the extent of our recent update, the configuration of our instruments used during experimentation, etc. So procuring high-end instruments with high cost is impossible. At the same time, not keeping in pace with the recent configuration also poses a challenge in building strong collaboration. So this all plays a major part in winning the trust with the people whom we seek collaboration. So discrepancies and discontent arises at all levels. The next important challenge is fund or financial commitment. In general, the grant are sanctioned in the following order. It is the elite research institutions who receives the grants immediately, which is greater than the university, followed by the colleges. So it is not hard to have collaboration on a theoretical domain, but funds play a major role when application is concerned. It can be either with a procurement of an equipment, or it can be with a demand from the collaborator seeking monetary benefit or fellowship for students. Like they say, yes, we can be friends, and friends only with benefits. And the next case is, in case of our collaborative work is funded by some agency, by some international agency, where, some 2 or 3 nations, we come together. Now, taking all participating nations into consideration, we work on the budget, we get it all straight, and by the time the fund is granted, money mobilized, the actual cash in hand after passing through our, through the country to us, does not reach us the same. Say, for example, after the taxes, after the money transfer, and the currency depreciation that is happening at that moment, creates tension in air for one party, which is seriously a tedious task to be mended by the collaborators. So, despite the condition that there is lack of fund, limited fund is also a big problem unless we know the ways to tackle them. Now, there are several other challenges. Yeah, keeping pace with the growth. For example, BRICS. Yeah, this is a story that I would like to share with you. Now, this BRICS means Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. All these 5 nations came together somewhere around 2015 for research and collaboration. I remember till date that there was an advertisement that was posted in the Department of Science and Technology website asking for proposals to be submitted for BRIC nations fundings, where 2 nations should come together with a common research interest, and they can submit for fundings and for collaborations. So what happened at that time was there were a lot of submissions being made, and it was also some nice thing of our DST government of India that all those rejected proposals also carried the reasons why they were rejected. So say, for example, I still remember that, not even a decade, some 5 to 7 years back, when there are some Indo-Hungarian research collaborations or Indo-Portugal, Indo-Spain, Indo-Brazil research collaborations, I very well remember that they will be asking for a letter of willingness between collaborators, or no objection or memorandum of understanding letters between the collaborators, I mean between the host and the parent institution, etc. But now later what happened was, not just mere letter of willingness, or this a letter of MOU or no objection letters. Evidences are now warranted in order to win the trust from the funding agency that we people collaborate with each other. So this interesting fact, why I'm bringing this to this perusal, is that in the year 2016, it was 2 nations. So what happened in the 2017 was, all those people who could not win the trust of the funding agency, or who could not get their proposals submitted being granted, they were working on it. They went together, they made research publications having affiliations of both the nations. And surprisingly, what popped up in the year 2017 was, it was not 2 nations any longer. It was 3 nations which has to come together to submit a research proposal, which means that now these 3 nations should also have a publication carrying affiliations of these 3 nations together. And the people, those who are all involved in the research collaboration, should carry an evidence that they are all collaborated even before this proposal was being submitted. So this creates a big challenge in keeping pace with the growth in the demands of research collaborations. And then the second one is, the growing configuration of instruments, which I had already discussed, like, the details, the configuration of our instruments, keeping our softwares updated. Now, all these will be clearly depicted in our publications, where, this is where we are, and all these pose serious challenges in gaining research collaborations. And this one point, I do not know if I can mention it very strong, like, government of India. Let me take government of India for that matter. All our institutions may not carry higher end instruments, but then government of India, through its portal like Department of Science and Technology and Department of Biotechnology, DBT, has got a small column where you can seek help from the central universities, where they will outsource. I mean, they are capable of outsourcing, or they can perform the results for our samples upon paid basis. So when we reach out to them, when we send our samples with all clear details, one problem what we face is, now all these manual work are done by laboratory assistants. It is all done very precise. It is all done very accurate, which I don't deny at all. But then you ask for profiling of something, the hit that we get is not equal to the one that what we actually use the equipment, what we actually optimize it, what we actually configure it. So therefore, the results that we gain out of all these external sources, this does not make our collaborators satisfied. They are not satisfied with these results where we, which is procured through external source, or where we outsource our samples. So this is one among the challenges in order to make our collaborators satisfied with the condition what we have in our hand. So, so let me put it on a positive note, like how to win challenges in collaboration. So when we talk about challenges in building collaboration, it is like identify the right collaborator. We need to have the right people as collaborators, and not the yes people around us. We do not want yes people. It is okay to have conflict of interest, because willingness to give and take constructive criticism without being defensive is all what that matters. Our collaborator needs to be mutual. The collaborator should not be a parasite, and our publication should gain research visibility. Only then we can have a successful collaboration with people of different places. Say, for example, Vidwan is an Indian portal, a database platform, which provides all details of the leading scientists or leading researchers in India, where you can get to know who is a person working on which topic from which institution, and where you can gain research collaboration. And several other sites such as ResearchGate or SIT, Publon will also help us to gain our research visibility. The next thing is, we need to mail people. We all can find the corresponding author's email ID on the publication. So the important thing that matters in winning this research collaboration is framing a beautiful mail, sharing the knowledge, and even in a part like we need to impress the people to collaborate with us for research publications. And the next thing, what I feel that we can have a successful research collaboration is through participating in conferences, finding similar mind people working, on a same goal, on a common interest. But then now in this pandemic era, I do not know how far things are going to be in the near future. Well, luck also matters. Finding the right person at the right time makes a lot of differences. Let me take you through the innovation and innovation challenges. So before entering into the challenges in building collaboration in innovation, let me take you through a small road line of how innovations are being made. Something that is different from research and innovation is, when it comes to innovation, it is an open but yet an organized structural forum. See, when a problem is being identified, this problem has to be converted into an innovative challenge, and this challenge is being given to the colleagues to form a creative solution, where a huge number of enormous collaborative ideas are being generated, pooled and put in together, and all these are combined for evaluation of ideas. Now, the next step will be developing an idea, implementing the most promising idea. This is what we technically call prototype in innovation. So now this prototype has to reach the market, and now the market should hit the profit. Now, this one line will define what an innovation is all about. Say, for example, now coming to the challenges is, now here in case of innovation, the challenges starts right from the discovery. So the discovery made by us can be an expected discovery, or it can be an unexpected discovery. If this discovery, when it is turned into an innovation, is a challenge. And next, when this innovation or discovery turned into a product is a next challenge. Therefore, prioritizing ideas, team capacity, resources, other pooling of ideas are all, challenges at the first level. I say that innovation challenges us travel a difficult road, at least in a part, from research. So some of the common challenges that we face in building innovation collaboration is that, number one, setting of unclear goals. So coming up with an innovation is an academic credit for us. However, when it comes to collaboration with an industry, for that matter, the commitment and the accomplishment of an innovation to product within the stipulated time and the market demand are something we still lack working being academicians. Second thing, most of the times we fail in innovation collaboration is because we do not identify, or we still lack knowledge and information in identifying the right type of audience. With whatever innovation we achieve with the existing network and with the external units or the resources that we have in hand, we fail winning collaboration when it is a wrong type of audience. Maybe I can tell you a story of, a fish kit which was developed by High Media. A lot of people, they got collaborated, students with academicians, they got collaborated working on something like to test your fish, how fresh they are. So they designed a kit made of some of pooling of chemicals, like where the kit will have a dropper, the kit will have a solution, and it will have a scorecard with different colors. So what happens is, suppose we procure fish. Now, and we procure fish for consumption purpose, we need to know how fresh the fish is. So what they did was, what the innovation was, like you take the dropper, you take the solution in a dropper, drop it on the fish, in case if the fish is stored for a long period with preservatives, the minute the solution drops on the fish, the skin will turn blue. And the extent of the color intensity that it turns blue can be identified from the scorecard that is present inside the kit. Okay, so this was the product which was being innovated with the several collaborations between, which was done in India. So what happened was High Media procured that kit and they wanted to make it market. But what happened? Like it did not reach out successfully. People were not, they did not want to buy such kits to test if their fish, what they are consuming, are really fresh. So in spite of having a big innovation, in spite of having beautiful collaboration, it did not reach the market. So literally what happened subsequently